The Russian army has lost its firepower advantage on the battlefield in Ukraine. They no longer have the ability to wipe cities off the face of the earth because of huge problems within the army. At the beginning of the war, the Russian army scorched cities with thousands of shells daily, but now the situation has changed dramatically in favor of Ukraine. But to see the whole picture, we have to look at the battle map. The main forces of both sides are directed at the Donetsk region, at Bakhmut and Soledad. Wagner Group is trying to surround Soledad because of the fruitless fight for Bakhmut. The situation in Bakhmut and Soledad is under control, except for Soledad. There is confirmation of the presence of Russian military in the industrial quarter of the city. There was a video with militants of the Wagner Group in a salt mine, but it is impossible to identify this place exactly. The exact situation in the city as of January 11 is unknown. Due to the lack of ammunition, Russia can no longer seize territory as quickly as it did at the beginning of the war against Ukraine. Russian artillery fire down nearly 75%, U.S. officials say, in latest sign of struggles for Moscow. A view shows remains of MLRS shells used by Russian troops for military strikes of the city and collected by sappers in Kharkiv, Ukraine, on November 29. As Russia's invasion enters its 11th month, U.S. and Ukrainian officials tell that Russia's artillery fire is down dramatically from its wartime high. There is no definite explanation for this, the TV channel sources said. Russia may be saving artillery shells due to shortages, or it may be part of a reassessment of tactics against the backdrop of successful actions by Ukrainian troops. Either way, U.S. and Ukrainian representatives stress, it is further evidence of Russia's weakening on the battlefield nearly a year after the invasion of Ukraine. But we can say for sure that due to the successful work of the Ukrainian army and U.S. HIMARS, Ukraine has destroyed dozens of Russian military depots and thereby significantly reduced the amount of available ammunition for Russian artillery. Depots with Russian military ammunition were destroyed in the Kherson, Luhansk and Donetsk regions by Ukrainian artillery. In the war against Ukraine, Russia uses all available artillery, such as 2S5, 2S3 Acacia, 2S1 Vozdika, Msta-C, Pion 2S7. Hundreds of such vehicles were destroyed by the Ukrainian army in Kharkiv, Kiev, Luhansk, Kherson and Donetsk regions. Hundreds were taken as trophies and are now used by Ukraine. At the beginning of the war, the Ukrainian artillery had a shortage of ammunition for this type of weaponry, but now thanks to Western partners and international aid, the Ukrainian army no longer has such big problems. So far, questions about Russia's weapons arsenal have mainly concerned cruise and ballistic missiles. But U.S. officials say the decline in artillery fire intensity may indicate that the prolonged fighting has also affected the stockpile of conventional weapons. The ammunition rationing and reduced intensity of fire is likely a departure from Russian military doctrine, which traditionally requires massive rocket and artillery fire. The Russian army will not be able to support offensive operations in 2023 because of the shortage of ammunition, military experts say. Analysts said that the Russians have exhausted their stocks of 122mm and 152mm caliber and other reserves in the summer of 2022. Russia's defense industrial base cannot overcome the resulting shortage. A U.S. Defense Department spokesman noted that the decrease in the intensity of fire is nonlinear, and there are days when the occupiers actively use artillery, especially in eastern Ukraine near Bakhmut and Kremenna. According to U.S. estimates, the number of artillery shots has decreased from 20,000 to 5,000 per day, according to Ukrainian estimates, from 60,000 to 20,000 per day. Earlier, the head of the SDU Kirill Budanov stated that since the beginning of autumn Russia has been experiencing a technical famine. There are not enough shells for artillery and tanks, and the industry is no longer able to produce the required number of missiles. Because of perfect work UA Army and US HIMARS Ukraine breaking down Russian logistics and Putin's troops cannot get needed quantities of shells each day. Also HIMARS destroyed around 10 Russian arsenal with thousands of shells and missiles this week. Either way, the striking decline in artillery fire is further evidence of Russia's increasingly weak position on the battlefield nearly a year into its invasion. It also comes as Ukraine is enjoying increased military support from its Western allies, with the US and Germany announcing last week that they will be providing Ukrainian forces for the first time with armored fighting vehicles, as well as another Patriot defense missile battery that will help protect its skies. Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, is apparently clamoring to shore up domestic political support, US intelligence officials believe, for a war he initially would only describe as a limited special military operation. It should also be noted that Russia is running out of cruise missiles that it has been bombing Ukrainian cities with for 11 months. All recent Russian military swarms have been completely ineffective. Ukrainian air defenses have eliminated 100% of the Russian missiles, and critical Ukrainian infrastructure has not been hit. The recent attack on Russian military airports deep in the rear of the country also reflected this. Ukrainian drones attacked the airport and Russian army bombers, thereby making the number of working Russian planes in the sky decrease. After the Ukrainian attack on the airports, Russia withdrew a large number of its planes deep into the country, which also affected Russia's ability to attack Ukraine with cruise missiles.